Today's video is brought to you by Private Internet Access, PC Mag's editor's choice for a VPN. Most of you are probably familiar with a VPN, but if you're not, a VPN helps protect your privacy online by hiding your IP address and encrypting your online communications. It also allows you to access geo-locked content. For example, if you're a Canadian but you want to watch something on UK Netflix, you can do so with Private Internet Access. With over 30 million downloads, Private Internet Access is a secure and proven VPN provider with a no-logs policy. If you really value your privacy, there are also payment options ranging from gift cards to Bitcoin. Private Internet Access is easy to use, but if you have any problems, there is 24/7 live customer support and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Right now, by visiting the link down in the description, that's privateinternetaccess.com/EckhartsLadder, you can get a 3-year subscription with the first 2 months free, then after that, just $2.08 per month. Thanks again to Private Internet Access. Again, the link is down in the description. Let's get on with the content. The scene with the Devastator coming out of hyperspace at just the wrong moment for the Rebel fleet and absolutely annihilating all of those scrappy Rebel forces is one of the greatest moments of Rogue One and truly the new era of Star Wars. But does it make sense? We've asked that question about a lot of things, everything from the Battle of Exegol, no, to the Battle of Coruscant, maybe, also sometimes no. The answer here though may be surprising. A lot of people compared this scene to the hyperspace ram from The Last Jedi as one way to justify what happened in that movie. I will note though, both of these scenes are different. In The Last Jedi, the Vaders, the large Mon Calamari cruiser, hits the supremacy as it's accelerating into hyperspace. This is a transition known sometimes in Star Wars Legends at least as pseudo-motion. The way I've sort of imagined the Last Jedi scene happening in my head is that the Vaders hits the supremacy in that sweet spot right as it's accelerating and probably at its top speed, but before it's actually broken through into hyperspace. Lore-wise, I still don't know if the result makes sense, but that's kind of how I've imagined it. However, the situation in Rogue One is very different. The Devastator comes out of hyperspace and it doesn't really ram anything, rather it gets hit by other ships, and specifically that one poor GR-75 that everyone knows, which themselves were accelerating to hyperspace but hadn't quite made the jump yet. The Devastator is actually not moving very fast comparably, it just came out of hyperspace, it's slowing down. It's the other ships which are crashing up against it. So yeah, in my mind, the scenes are only similar insofar as they're both ramming sequences. The Devastator scene is a little closer to what we get at the beginning of Spartan Ops in Halo 4, but in that case, the Infinity is keeping its speed and it's doing the ramming. Anyway, that's actually not the main complaint for this scene and is not the reason why I see most people saying that it just doesn't make sense from a Star Wars perspective. I got an interesting question from Nolan on Twitter who says, I wonder why the ISD showed right up where they were jumping out. And I actually read his comment wrong at first, but he also seems to be pointing out that this does seem to be in line with the original rules of hyperspace. Why is that? Well, let me explain. And by the way, if you're unfamiliar with hyperspace and missed my prior videos on the subject and want a refresher before we continue or even after this video, I have done a short video on my Clips channel, which you might enjoy. But anyway, hyperspace travel almost always takes place along prescribed routes. These aren't man or alien-made routes, rather they're discovered, charted, and put in a navigational database. These routes are generally free of hazards, they're pretty safe, and the more popular ones will constantly be updated. So even with the shifting of gravity in the galaxy, they'll remain pretty up to date. Some planets may have one hyperspace route leading to them if they're at the end of a trail. Others may have 2 or 3. Some other planets may have many more, allowing you to reach the planet from any direction within the galaxy. I don't think it's really necessary to go over the specifics here, but suffice to say, you can imagine that there are sort of highways leading to planets. So it makes sense, first of all, that both the Rebel fleet leaving along a certain route and Vader coming into the planet along a certain route could meet in the same general area. But there's also a second fact which makes this sort of close encounter of the dark side kind more likely. Making the jump to hyperspace from a planet or other celestial body requires that you travel a safe distance away and escape the body's gravitational pull. This takes you to what's known as the egress point, where jumping is possible. Alternatively, this egress point can also be described as an ingress point, generally the furthest you'll be able to travel along the hyperspace lane before you have to exit because of the proximity of the planet. So in an emergency battle, and this was an emergency for both sides, Vader wanted to get to Scarif as quickly as possible, the rebels wanted to leave as quickly as possible, they would be making the jump in and out of hyperspace at the minimum distance, which would be pretty close to the same area. And not only close, it actually looks like Vader's coming out pretty much exactly where the rebel fleet was leaving hyperspace. So it's kind of a nice attention to detail. I don't know if it was done on purpose. The attempt when writing the scene may have been to convey that Vader knows exactly where the rebel fleet is. I'm not quite sure, but I like my explanation just as well. And it also is possible that Vader was getting general information about the placement of the rebel fleet, so he did try to make this pinpoint jump. And you will notice that he does come out guns blazing, but that's also easier to do when you're coming up against a gravity well. That's why sometimes Thrawn would use interdictors to perform precise hyperspace jumps. What he would do, because hyperspace jumping can be somewhat inaccurate, is he would cast the interdiction bubble over a certain area, and he would use that basically as something to precisely rip his ships out of hyperspace. So if Thrawn wanted to essentially make a micro jump with one of his, say, Victory Star Destroyers jumping out next to, say, a Golan platform, he would have his interdictors cast the field just over the Golan, something that's more controllable than hyperspace jumping, and he would have his other vessel come in on a heading that made sense. This is also a technique that Rogue Squadron and the New Republic used during the Battle of Coruscant, although for a different reason. They actually had an interdictor cruiser sitting in the Coruscant hyperlane. If Rogue Squadron failed on the ground and didn't manage to take down the planetary shield, then the interdictor Star Destroyer would keep its field up and prevent the invading fleet from jumping to Coruscant, where they would be slaughtered and unable to fight back against the planetary shield. If they were successful, the interdictor would take the field down and the fleet could continue. And I'm talking about all of this because I do think it's sort of interesting to think about how the edge of either a natural or artificial gravity well can impact hyperspace jumps, precise jumps, and entering battle. Another interesting comment I got was from Pete Oz, who says, "It actually surprises me that there is not a station at the mouth of hyperspace lanes controlling traffic flow." And that's a great point. It does seem like these sort of off-ramp, on-ramp areas would be prime for collisions, especially in the Star Wars galaxy where, well, space is quite small. Realistically, a hyperspace lane would probably be very, very far across, but with Star Wars, things are often kept in a pretty local area. And we actually do know that many planets did have formal checkpoint systems. I've talked a little bit recently about how I'm reading the Black Fleet Crisis. In that book, they talk about how they actually make you fly several days away from the planet, at least in the crappy freighter that Luke's using, for that very purpose. And there's different zones. There's like a red zone where jumping out is illegal and jumping in is illegal, a green and a yellow zone with various requirements depending on ship type. So for a planet like Coruscant, for example, there would be a very heavy sort of regulatory body policing where people jump in and jump out. That would have been updated through Navicomputers. But you have to remember, Scarif was meant to be a secret world. It was an Imperial research facility, so the only people coming in and out of the planet would have been Imperials. They would have had a schedule, and there were 2 Star Destroyers ready to blow up anyone who didn't follow the rules. But yeah, that's all I have for today. I hope you guys found this video topic interesting. It wasn't actually one that I was planning on covering, but for the really interesting comment there from Nolan, who I think was right on the money. So that's all, guys. Let me know if you have any further questions down below. Anything from this video or another you'd like me to expand on. Again, you can check out the primer I did on hyperspace basics and blockade basics over on my Clips channel. It's also on TikTok under X2. Until next time though, guys, have a good one, be safe, and may the Force be with you.